Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, May 4th, and it's a beautifully sunny day. It's about 66 right now, just a little after 9 in the morning, and we finally got some needed rain Friday and Saturday. I think it's over a couple of inches. We'll see later. We'll check my rain gauge on the backyard. But it was very hot this week. It's a glimpse of summer here in Mobile. And I spent some time rejigging the plants in my front porch here. I put the nun's orchid outside, and I wound up moving the ground orchid that used to be back here in this corner. I put it over there, repotted it in a larger pot, trimmed a bunch of plants down, and called it quits on a couple because I got tired of looking at them in a pitiful condition. Oh, goodness. But yeah, here everything is looking fine. I trimmed up some of the pothos because it was getting tangled up in the cactus. That euphorbia needs repotting. It has been in that pot now for probably about 7 or 8 years, if not longer. And it really does need to be bumped up. I have discovered these plastic pots from Lowe's, and I kind of like them. I don't particularly like plastic. However, when they get to be that size, they're much lighter, so they're easier to be moved around. Here you can see the African violet that we repotted about 3 or 4 weeks ago is now blooming. That was the one that got it looked like a palm tree. It had grown a long stalk. So what I did was knock the dirt off of it and buried it up to its basically neck in the dirt. And you can see it must have liked it because it's sending out a second batch of flowers. It had bloomed once before, which is why I left it be until it had finished blooming. A lot of new growth on the Christmas cactus. I did move all of my torch begonias here. Well, 3 of them here. Another one is elsewhere in the front porch. But also the cuttings I took this winter, of which those are 2, are also in the backyard. I'll show you those on the deck when we get there. I cut some of the leaves of this off, the bird's nest fern. I never had one get that big before. And you can see it's got a teeny tiny little pot. I need to repot that at some point. But it just got too overwhelming, so I took some of the outer leaves off because I don't really have a spot for it here. So I don't want it to get so big that I have to get rid of it. I did break up the bromeliad that was in the backyard, and I brought one piece of it in here. I'll show you the other that I left in the backyard. I bought that last year in bloom, and thought I paid way too much for it because it was like $30 in bloom. However, whatever you call it, the stalk that bloomed, that particular plant died, shriveled up, but 2 other ones actually sprouted. So I've split it and put one here, and I have the other one in the backyard on the deck. And I'll call this little fern here my resurrection fern because I have killed it down to the ground at least 3 times. Maiden's hair fern, and it's coming back. It is a beautifully cool day right now. It's in the high 60s. It was up into the 80s this week, nearly 90. So I didn't do a lot of gardening in the afternoons. I would work early in the mornings, and basically by noon I was done working outside. I did wash my car, but can't really tell now that the rains have come. These bananas are doing well. I need to limb them up, but I'm waiting till they get a little taller. I do have to get back in there because there's a water tap that I have to turn on when I water. And I was doing a lot of that because it had been very dry for the last 3 weeks. I don't think I showed you this last week. Here's where I put the 3 Easter lilies, and I did cut back the fig, and it's still doing fine, sending up a lot of new growth. Everything here is looking very lush, including the weeds. You can see here the seed pods on my crinum lily. No growth yet on this cassia. It may have finally given up the ghost, but I have 2 in the backyard that I'll show you, so I won't be put out by that. Here, finally, my sago palm is sprouting. It's doing well. I knew it would, it just was very slow under that tree. Got some new growth here on the sable minor, as well as I see some flower stalks coming out in the back. Don't know if you can see them, but they're coming up. A lot of things got beat down by the rains that we got, because it rained. There were no winds, but it rained hard and fast. Probably about 4 or 5 spells. I do like the impatiens. They look good here. I do need to thin out some of the wandering dude before it will overwhelm that whole bed if I'm not careful. Easter lilies from last year are still coming up. I did not get around to doing any work in here. It was just too hot. But we did cut the 4 tea olives the week before last. I do plan on, I'm just going to cut the azaleas, trim them down a little to keep them small, and the loropetalums, the purple plants over there. I'm going to try to leave the camellias alone, but maybe just get rid of a couple of errant branches that are sticking way out. The nandinas, you wouldn't even know that I cut them back earlier this year. They are the perfect height right now. Of course, I planned for that. Whenever I cut my nandinas, I like to cut them about 2 foot lower than ultimately where I'd like them to be. And you can see here especially, that's exactly what it did. It put on about 2 feet of growth, and it will kind of sustain itself there. But these are the old-fashioned nandinas that aren't sold anymore, and they spread like wildfire all over. I have cut the seedlings, not seedlings, they're roots of the nandinas that are coming through, and they spread all over, so I'm constantly cutting that down. This cycad has definitely leafed out nicely. That one was earlier than the one over there. Don't know why. Well, it's not looking very good right now, but this was my first gardenia of the season. So gardenias are starting to bloom. Got beat down by the rains. But I see there's a lot of buds. So it'll be interesting to see how they do here. Sometimes they do give little fruits. I don't know if any of y'all have noticed that after they bloom, they'll get a little pod similar to, it looks like a bud. It looks just exactly like this. See if you can see my finger. Yes, except it's red. I happened to notice that last year. So an added plus if you don't cut the dead flowers off. Blackberries are still green, starting to turn a little bit. This has really grown together nicely. And I'm glad that the lemongrass has been stunted, because it will grow about 6 feet tall by the end of the season. So the longer it stays small like that, the better. Of course, my lavender is starting to bloom. I need to cut back my parsley. It's starting to bolt. The sage has really spread nicely this year. And these three things are broccoli. And this basil I got from Aldi's. That was a good buy at Aldi's. I think it was $3 for one pot of basil, and it had so many seedlings that I have one here, one on that side. I gave one away. That's 3, 4, 5. I think I got 6 plants altogether out of one $3 pot. It was definitely worth the investment. My opuntia has got some sprouts on it. This pad here is where a bird took a nip out of it when it was a pad like that, when it was small. It never bit it again, so they must not taste good. Up in New York, the deer love them. When I had my garden up in New York, so you have to be careful of those. You wouldn't think they would be able to eat a cactus, but they can. This area still looks nice. Tomatoes haven't ripened yet, but it looks like one of them is starting to. You do have to keep these watered. I have a can of water right there that I use every day. I spent a long time this week, well, before I get there, here's the Australian tree fern is starting to look like an Australian tree fern again. Yay! The one side that died out is over here, and it never sprouted, so apparently that's just going to be the way it is. So it'll have a little jog in the trunk. But it's still there. This is the second winter it went through. I bought it as a very small plant. It really only looked like a fern, but within the 2 years you can see how big it's gotten. That's about 4 feet tall right now. It'll get up to 6 this year. And annoyingly, I'll get out of the sunlight so you can see, these 2 lilies of the Nile I had in my urns on the back deck, or off the back deck, for 3 or 4 years. And the suckers never bloomed. So I put them here figuring, well, I wouldn't throw them out. I just let them come over here and live. And lo and behold, sprout 1 and sprout 2. I don't know if you can see that. I don't remember them being white. They appear to be white. I got them on sale at Lowe's after they had already bloomed, so I didn't really know what I was getting. There you can see the daturas that reseeded themselves are coming back. This takes a lot to keep the nandinas out of this. That's one thing I did this week. And I've made it a to-do, put it on my to-do list. I have so many bags of leaves. I have spot for all of them, but I just haven't gotten around to getting rid of them. So my goal for every week now is to lose 1 bag of leaves, which I did do last week. I spread them out all through here and on that side. But this is looking good. Oh, the other thing I did was I finally decided to get rid of the variegated ivy that I had on these obelisks. It had done extremely well, I guess, last year, and then for some reason the middle one died. Make sure I'm pointing at it. I have to look at the camera. The middle one died, so I planted the Confederate jasmine, Trachyospermum jasminoides. And then this one from out of the blue died. The whole thing just collapsed. So I dug it out and planted another jasmine. And that one was a beautiful one. I hated to do it, but you know me, I can't have 2 of one and 1 of another, especially if it's the center one I could see, but not an end one. That was a beautiful topiary variegated ivy, but I ripped it all off, dug it out, and planted another jasmine, and they will do well. And my neighbor Sarah has planted some hydrangeas there. This will be basically a hydrangea area. Those two hydrangeas, I believe, are Nico Blue. Those are not. Those are a different color. This pot of Aztec grass died. These two pots, I don't know, I thought they were a good buy at the time. I got them in an antique shop, and I didn't give much for them. But in reality, they're a beautiful pot, but they're small. What do you do with a pot that's only, 4 or 5 inches across? So I thought Aztec grass, because I wanted something spiky, and it's hard to kill. There's a lot to be said for things that are hard to kill. So I'm putting that, I tried that. This one, however, did die last winter. I guess it got too cold for it. So I replaced it. Fortunately, there is a plentiful supply of Aztec grass. And another resurrection plant. I was absolutely gobsmacked this week. My cordyline is coming back. You all may recall I bought that last year, again on sale at Lowe's. And it died back to the ground. Thank God I didn't yank it out, because it was mushy. I just cut it at the top and left the roots, and lo and behold, it is sprouting back. So yay! Apparently cordylines are ground hardy here. I'll call it ground hardy. Everything below ground stays alive and everything above ground dies. Here you can see the rains have wreaked havoc. That needs to be trimmed back, as well as some of these branches here. Let's go into the backyard. I have this bell here, but no one ever rings it. I put it there in case someone should come to this back gate and they need to get my attention. A lot of times I have a little sign in the front porch that I put out saying I'm out back working with an arrow. But no one's ever used the bell yet, but I put it there. Something's been eating my angel's trumpet. Sarah was saying the horse lubbers are back. I only saw one so far over here and killed it as soon as I saw it. These Confederate jasmine, no, this is the yellow jasmine. Jessamine, G-E-S-S-A-M-I-N-E. This is the poisonous one. Of course, the other one's semi-poisonous too. This is an air potato, which I don't want because the bugs eat it. And I'm tired of bugs eating my air potato. These, I took a picture of this last week, and it didn't come out very good because my camera doesn't do well with close-ups. So hopefully somewhere along here you'll get a good view of my African iris. The rains wreaked havoc with my Easter lilies. I guess these were last year's. I told you the ones on that in the camellia garden, that was from the year before. So those were 3 years. This is last year. And then this year's I planted out front. Still have blossoms, although they're not looking, well, they're not really blossoms. They're bracts on the Lenten roses. These ferns have really grown. I have to get in there and weed because the dead is still in the bottom from the winter. Haven't gotten around to it yet. But you can see these lilies do well here. And probably the plant of the week, which for those of you that are in northern climes will say, why? These are wild daylilies, the tawny daylily, that I brought down when I moved from up north to here. They grow like weeds up north. They're along the banks. They're also called banks of roads, sides of roads. They're also called ditch lilies. But they remind me of growing up in upstate New York. No fragrance, but a beautiful orange color. And they are edible, so hence it's in my herb bed. Of course, the sedum is not edible. It's in there too. Up in here, you can see the satsuma has leafed out nicely. This satsuma, not so much. I wound up cutting some more dead off of it. However, what it has left now is sprouting. So it'll do okay. If I cut it at this notch, it would grow back. So if you ever have a satsuma tree damaged, Don't give up hope. Just cut it down to whatever's still living, and it will sprout from the stump. Still waiting for this camellia. Ah! No, I'm not waiting anymore. I see new growth. I did not see that last week. So it's got some new growth. It's going to live. This part, I don't know. I may have to cut some of the dead out, but I'm not going to do it yet. We'll see what happens. It just got a little too exposed to the cold last year. Oh, I have to show you my asparagus. They did come this week and attempt to work on my garage, so you see a piece of trim. Unfortunately, well, they had to leave. The rains came, and they absolutely got drenched, so they kind of just left things the way they were. So there's still some trim to be done. It'll happen. I do like the color. It has grown on me. I was a little shocked at first. I loved it in the store. I loved it at home. When it went on the walls, I had second thoughts. I guess you always have second thoughts when something new happens, so it just takes a while to get used to it. And I do like it. Here's the asparagus. Asparaguses. Jersey Giant. You can tell I'm an optimist because it's going to take 3 years for that before I can harvest. And these bananas are doing well now that I put them in the sun. I'll need to get those shells out of there. I put shells in them when they're on the deck, if they're under the overhang, because when the dirt falls off the overhang, I don't have gutters, and it'll throw dirt all over. And so I put the shells there. It kind of minimizes the dirt splatter. This is a bag of leaves. That's going to be this week's goal. I'm going to spread it out in here. I was going to do it, and then the guy showed up on Friday to do the painting, or touch-ups and other things, but the rain stopped us all from doing it. I can't wait to develop that back space because I very rarely have new ground. Every square inch of my property has been developed. It happened gradually, I have to admit. What happened was originally I had 3 big oak trees along the street and not much else. All of this was not here. There was one large magnolia that never bloomed. It was a southern magnolia, not a little gem. And I looked at it for about 8 to 10 years and it never bloomed. So I finally got rid of it and put other things there. But where I was going with that story is what I started doing is wherever I planted bushes, I didn't like the idea of raking leaves. So I put beds underneath the bushes so that when the leaves fell, especially the oak leaves, they just fell into the flower beds and I didn't have to worry about them. I'm one of those people that I allow leaves to settle in my garden and I use them as mulch. I know that's heresy because I'm not buying my mulch from a bag. However, it's me, it's my choice. And the leaf litter does really well here. It disappears within a year. So it does disappear quickly. My bougainvillea is coming back, as are my toad lilies. These, yeah, I can't think of the name of them right now, but they're coming back. I replanted them. These are basically weeds down south. Not crocosmia, something like that. I'll tell you later. I'll put it in the bottom of the video. Here again is more Confederate jasmine. I do have my fountains turned on today. I don't know what's going on with this male cycad, but you can see the male cone is starting to come up. I knew that it wouldn't put on any new leaves, so I just was tired of looking at the dead around that cycad because it got so cold last winter. I don't know why it sent up one leaf, but it sent up one green leaf and it's going to send up its cone. I do like the little sound of this fountain. It's nice to just sort of sit here on this little stool and listen to the fountain. I did notice that that particular Indo palm has a new blossom opening up. Have to be careful so the sun doesn't hit you. It still has some old blossoms from last year, but it's getting new stalks as well. The grass is coming back because of the rains, or from the rains. Oh, there's Pickle. Dilly, the other black female cat, is getting tame enough. She likes to be petted. So she will soon be fixed. This little clumping of coleus I do like, although something's been munching on it. I don't believe there are slugs because it's been too dry for slugs, so it must be the horse lubbers. I just haven't found them. It's not horse lover, like a lover, L-O-V-E-R. It's lubber, L-U-B-B-E-R. They're great big, well, this time of the year they're small, little dinky, cute black grasshoppers. However, by the end of the summer, they will be 4 inches long. There's only one bird in Alabama that eats them, and I forgot the name of the bird. They are poisonous, and what this bird has learned to do is it impales the horse lubber on a thorn and then comes back to it 3 or 4 days later after it has ripened nicely in the sun. But they have no natural enemies, so they can eat a bunch of leaves like that in probably about 2 days left unchecked. So they love, their number one choice of plant is the leaves on the the Christmas flower. I can't think of amaryllis. The leaves of the amaryllis is their preferred choice. But apparently a close second is the leaves of the angel's trumpets. I don't know about coleus. I haven't had a lot of coleus to get experience with it, but something's eating it. Oh, here you can see also this cycad. All of my cycads have resprouted, which is good. I did notice too that the lady palm is coming up. It sent these little shoots. I have learned that although they look tempting to try and dig these little shoots out, what they really are is there's a long runner underground, and there are absolutely no roots anywhere near that little palm coming out of the ground. So I've learned to let them stay in that spot for a good long time before you think of digging them out. This one I got a couple of years ago or last year. It's still got a little life left to it, but the frost definitely gets it back. There are very few palms that like to be in full shade, and that is one of them that will do well in full shade. Most palms need sun. Cycads are another one. They're a little set back in terms of growing, but they will grow in a fairly dense shaded area. The added plus is this is the least hardy of my palms, the lady palm. It's Rhapsis something or other. I never remember the last part of that. But the Pindo palm foliage protects it in the wintertime. I think frost must fall from above, so it does protect it somewhat from frosts. However, when it gets to 28 or 27 or lower, everyone fends for themselves at that point. David is looking fine over here. I did have to patch him up. During Katrina, David was whacked on the head with a large branch and was actually split into about 3 fragments. And I was able to piece him back together again using waterproof cement. So every now and then he cracks. So you can't lean against him, move him, touch him, whatever. I had to move him last year because he sunk into the ground. So I opened up some cracks again. So I filled them up again with the hydraulic cement. It's amazing what you can glue together using hydraulic cement. My vincas in pots along the wall are still doing well. The ginger lilies are coming back. They got trod upon quite hard when we were cleaning the dead off of the palm tree. I like to do that cleaning early in the year before things start to grow, because I know it's hard to do any work around a big tree like that or a big palm without stepping on something. I want to show you the top of the palm, but I've got to get out of the sunlight to do so. I think we're good here. But you can see the Canary Island date palm is coming back. And I'm thinking this is the first year I've left the dead. I'm thinking that's a good thing that nature does, because the only thing you have to protect from a cold frost or cold weather is the growing tip, which that's going to naturally do by just staying there. So maybe all those years I was cutting all the dead off, I was probably doing more harm than good, because hopefully nature will take care of itself. I remember the guy that sold me the Canary Island date palm. I used to have on either side of it was a large oak tree, water oak. And when I bought the Canary Island date palm, it had no stalk. This is probably about 25 to 30 years ago. It was the first palm that I put in, or had put in. And after I bought it, I invited him over to see. His guys planted it for me. Bob Bateman was his name. He used to sell palms. That's where I got the majority of my palms from. He's since gone out of business. But when I had him over, he said, you know, that palm is going to get 40, it's going to get 40 feet tall. I said, 40 feet tall? You didn't tell me that, because he was my source for palm information at the time. He said, don't worry about it. You're not going to live to see it get that tall. He had a way with words, and he's probably right. It's probably about 25 feet tall right now, I would guess. But the oak trees have gone. They fell over in a storm about 10 years ago, almost exactly a couple of weeks ago. The flower stalks on this are starting to come out. I have never seen that many flower stalks before. Pickle does like the dirt. Must be nice and cool down there. Serenoan repons. It will have fruit, but I don't believe these little flowers have opened yet. We'll see. I do know one thing. I have an abundance of blueberries coming. You can see they're starting to turn a little purple. Angel's trumpets have risen above the fatsias. It's really empty back there. I don't know what I'm going to put back in there, but there's a row of aspidistra against the fence, which is short, and then suddenly everything else jumps up high. My pecan, that was a nut a couple of years ago, planted by the squirrels, is doing well. It's about 1.5 feet from the stump. The pot back in there is on the stump of a Japanese plum. I used to have a row of these loquats. When I first came to Mobile, I didn't know what trees to plant. And by the airport that I used to come in on, because I did a lot of traveling when I first came down, I noticed they had a stretch of them in between the highway. And I was wondering what they were. I asked around and found out they were loquats. They're no longer there. The airport decided that loquats apparently were too low class, and since then they've put palms in instead. However, the loquats did well for many years, and mine did as well. But I had two die for me. I had this one, and then I had the one at the very corner of the property where I have the red crepe myrtle now. There used to be a loquat there. This week I'm going to clean up some of the dead here. This is a big trash pickup week. So I'll be working in this corner. But everything here looks good. I can see the lantana is starting to bloom. Oh, I promised to show you where I put the cassias. There's cassia here. And there's another one, which you really can't see, over there, but you'll be able to see it next week. I'll clean out some of the overgrowth on the forsythia as well as an andina. But trust me, down there is a cassia. They will get tall. I used to have cassias here, and when I used to go away for the summers, what my yard man did one time is they got very tall and flopped, and he tied them together and made like an archway over the top of the settee. And I may do the same thing because it really looked good. But then they started dying. They just up and die. They'll stay. They're not quite hardy in our zone, even though we're a 9A theoretically. 8B is what I grew up with here for the last 30 years. But some years they make it, some years they don't. If you can get 2 or 3 years out of the plant, count yourself lucky. Back in here, all is looking fine. This particular angel's trumpet has done well. It has stopped getting its leaves munched on. Here's where some of the leaf litter has to go yet. Oh, there's Dilly. That's the cat that's very friendly now. Come here. She's not running, that's a good thing. Here you can see my knockout rose, or encore, no, knockout rose. The yellow is blooming. And I'm still having strawberries. Not quite ripe yet, but I'll tell you what, even the greenest strawberry tastes better than one you buy in a store that you get from your own garden. These alströmerias are not long for this world. I've decided they really are a weed, a beautiful weed, but it is time that they leave this place. I'm still going to give this spiderwort, and see the bees really love it. They love that color blue, but I'm going to give this spiderwort another year. It is unusual for spiderwort to grow where you would like it to grow, because it tends to come up every other place than where you want it. In my experience. It does that just to taunt me, I think. Crepe myrtles are definitely leafing out, especially the one in the front yard. I should have mentioned it when I was out there. The rains beat this one down a little bit, but it will snap up again. The coxcombs are doing really well here, as are the geraniums or pelargoniums. I'm reminded of Martha Stewart. I got a little bored this last week, or a couple of days, because of the rains. So I started watching on the Roku channel some old Martha Stewart from the 90s. Martha Stewart Living. And she was talking about coxcombs or celosia. And I actually looked. She was making Christmas ornaments with the dried flowers. And they actually do sell the dried flowers on Etsy. I'm tempted to get some, not to make Christmas ornaments with. I have a life. I'll buy Christmas ornaments. That reminds me, it's funny how you watch shows. I remember watching Martha Stewart Living when I first got out of college, and I had first set up housekeeping. And I remembered watching her and thinking, back then I was in my 30s, and I kept thinking, gosh, she must be old, or she looked old, but I really liked her ideas. And now when I watch her shows, I think, God, she looks young. It's amazing how your perspective changes as one ages. Some of the stuff she does now did not translate well with age, because she spent part of one show showing how you can make a customized case for your VHS tapes, so that way you'll have them forever. Yeah. I also watched her make silver cloth, little holders for your silver so it won't tarnish. And it's like, you can buy that on Amazon now, woman. I ain't got time for that. The cyclamen are doing one last push of flowers. Alas, the heat will do them in. However, for right now, they look beautiful. Enjoy them while you can. Here's where I cut the one chunk of bromeliad out. So it had 3 altogether. These 2 are too closely connected, so I was not able to separate those 2. But the other one had a fairly good chunk of roots on it, so we'll see. Here is more of that torch begonia. And it actually must have caught. I had rooted these in the kitchen. This one was wilted and hanging over the edge of that pot for the last couple of weeks. And I notice now, being watered and the rains falling on it, that it is starting to pick itself up. So apparently it did catch. Here's more of that basil I told you about. One, down there's another, and there's another. That's the basil I got from Aldi's that I was telling you about in the front yard. There is the same vinca that I have in pots. I have around this little fountain. I do like the marigolds. My grandmother, Sophie, used to have those in her garden. She used to have a row of marigolds that she'd seed every year and put them directly in the ground. She'd save seeds from year to year too. I guess she called them French marigolds, but she had them on either side of the sidewalk. These little plants are doing okay. That middle cell just will not come up. They all sprouted nicely, and then the birds came and started picnicking on them. Borage. That's one of the few herbs that will grow in the shade as well. So I need to pot that up. Here's where I put the nun's orchid to live. The big one. 2 smaller ones that I cut off of it, I put in the far corner facing David. And this is my rose scented geranium. I had it out in the garage. I'm sorry, I had it out in the garçonniere, and it got real leggy. However, from ignoring it for a week or 2, it started sprouting from the bottom, so I cut all the legginess off. This is one of the plants I brought out, that begonia. It has looked pitiful in the house for the last 2 years, and I figured I was going to throw it out, but I figured, you know, I'll just put it out on the deck and see what it does. Ooh, a dragonfly. I don't know if you can see it or not. I noticed I like to sit on the deck. And with the dragonflies, I used to watch them watch me. And then one day I saw what, apparently I was a fishing lure for it. Because when a mosquito would come by, he would zip up and try and get the mosquito, watching me like a worm in the water. And I do have a hummingbird that comes from my hummingbird feeder. He comes about 7 in the morning, so I've missed him today. And that is one of the pink daisy plants, the purple coneflower. That one I brought from New York with me, or at least the seeds from it originally, its ancestor. But I dug that out. That was growing where I potted up, or where I put out the Easter lilies in the front yard. I figured rather than get rid of it, I'd stick it in a pot. But there you have it for today. I think I have rambled on enough. It's a beautifully sunny day. I hope you all get to get out in your yard and enjoy your yard some. Don't just work in them. Enjoy them. Your garden's never going to be done. Let me just tell you that now. You might as well enjoy the process along the way. And I will leave you with, I guess, just a picture of the bananas coming up. They are rising above the, actually here they're rising above the needle palms. Have a good week. Till next Sunday. Bye-bye.